Okay, so I'm carrying on knitting my snout, and the next instruction that you will be introduced to is called the wrap and turn. And the wrap and turn comes into play when you're using a shaping technique known as short row shaping, where you start by knitting a part of a row, you work this wrap and turn stitch, and then you turn your work over. So I'm just going to knit the part of the row. My instruction's asking me to knit 22 stitches. So I'm just going to get those knitted for us here. Let's see how many we've got. So 5, 10, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Right, so to do your wrap and turn at this stage, you can see I've actually got 3 stitches left on my left-hand needle. So we're going to leave 2 of those and we're going to wrap the next one. So to wrap it, you start by taking your yarn from the back of the work, between the needles to the front of the work. You then slip the next stitch from the left to the right-hand needle, like so, before taking the yarn from the front and to the back of the work between the needles again, which if you look closely you can see your stitch has now been wrapped with yarn. You're then going to slide this stitch back onto the left-hand needle before turning your work over to then work the next section. So we're going to follow the next instruction, which is to do purl 21 stitches and then to do another wrap and turn. So I'm just going to purl across these here. 2, 3, 21. And now we're asked to wrap the stitches again. So this must be symmetrical shaping, as I do again have 3 stitches on my left-hand needle. So I'm going to start by slipping the next stitch from the left to the right-hand needle, taking the yarn between the needles to the back of the work, and then slipping that stitch back to its original location, back onto the left-hand needle, before turning the work over to then work the next instruction. Now this row is asking us to knit all the way to the last stitch, and then we're going to do an increase. So what you need to be wary of when you're working this technique is as you knit across a stitch or purl across a stitch that has been wrapped on a previous row, you'll need to do something a bit special. You'll need to pick up the wrap that you've put around the yarn and knit it or purl it with the stitch that you wrapped around earlier. So I'm going to show you how to do that once we get there. Now you might remember it was the third of the last 3 stitches left on our left-hand needle. So let's find it. You'll soon see it as you get there. Here we go. So that's the stitch there. You might be able to see this little nub of yarn that we need to pick up and work with the next stitch there. Right, so we're coming a bit closer just to show you that wrap there. So we need to be able to get to the wrap in order to lift it up onto our left-hand needle and to work it together with the next stitch. Now my next stitch is supposed to be knitted because we're working in stocking stitch. So we will be knitting the 2 together, but first, so that I can get to it, what I need to do is move this stitch out of the way by sliding it onto the right-hand needle to create access to the wrap. I'm going to pick that up with my left-hand needle. There it is. And then I'm going to put the stitch back onto the left-hand needle so that I may then knit the 2 together. So we're not decreasing any stitches here because that was a wrapped piece of yarn. It wasn't actually a stitch. It was just wrapped around the stitch that we had there earlier. So then I'm going to knit the next stitch, just so you can see that by lifting the bar up, what you should have is what looks like a normal knitted fabric, but instead you've got an extra row's worth of work in this middle section here to create some additional shape around the clanger's head.